So I'm taking a quick little 15 from work. And I was just sitting here thinking about a story that my mom had told me when we were younger. We used to be so terrified of this story. So I'm going to tell you guys this story. And if you ask all parties involved, this story is 100% true. Okay? So during the summer, my mom and like all her cousins and aunts and everything, like she had young aunts. So they will all go to my great-grandmother's house for the summer. And my great-grandmother, she lived in St. Augustine, Florida. And, you know, that's like the oldest town in Florida. You know, they have all these, like all this paranormal activity in St. Augustine, like, you know. So she said that my grandmother lived like on this like really dark street or whatever. It was close to, we call it the S curve. But it was like there was a graveyard. There's a graveyard on the S curve. So during the same summer, and this is just like kind of like a separate, but during the same summer, they had like ran through a graveyard and one of the cousins got lost in the graveyard. And like they looked for him for like an hour straight. They could not find him until like, you know, suddenly he just come walking out like calm. He was like, something grabbed his foot, and then he was like, this man walked him out. He was like, this old man walked him out. And there was like, they swore that there was nobody else in the graveyard with him, whatever. So that's just one little instance. So like basically they were known for like being bad, basically. So there was this gathering at my grandmother's house, my great-grandmother's house. And like all the adults and everything, they were in the living room. And every time she's told the story, it has not changed, ever. And when we get together, like for family reunions, she'll bring it up and like everybody will tell their account of like how it happened from their eyes. But it's the same story. I know y'all like get to the point. Okay. So they were having this gathering at my great-grandmother's house. All the adults were in the room. And like the kids were in there playing and being loud. They were play fighting or whatever. And my great-grandma came in and she was like, y'all be quiet. Y'all being so bad or something. Y'all keep being so bad, the devil's gonna come and ride y'all or whatever. So they say, you know, she had left out or whatever. They still playing. They still being loud. They still, you know, doing all the things that kids do. And they like all of a sudden, like they see something like they see something at the window. And it was like, they see like it's at the window. And my mom was like, they all look around like to make sure that everybody sees what they're seeing, right? So she was like, then it was like this muscular demon looking thing. Like every time she would tell the story, we would be too scared to go to sleep. So she was like, it was just like this muscular demon looking thing with like a pitchfork that came through the window. And she was like, they was all yelling and screaming and all of that. Like they said this encounter took like maybe an hour. It felt like they were stuck in there with this thing for like a long time. So they were like, they all just like jumping, trying to hide behind each other. And like my mom was the smallest one. She was the youngest one at the time. So she was like, they kept like pushing her forward toward the thing. And she was like, the thing just kept flying around the room, like basically tormenting them. Like she was like, they were terrified. She said they were terrified. But I don't recall her saying like it touched any of them or anything like that. But it was just like they were scared. Like it tormented them. She said for what felt like hours. So she was like, finally, like somehow somebody found the Bible and they was like throwing the Bible and all this stuff. And then eventually the thing like just goes back out the window. And then they was like screaming and crying and all of that. And it was like, finally my great grandma came back in like, what's going on in here? And it was like, they were like, all like, yeah, Mama, we was calling you and we was scared this thing, the devil was in here fighting us. And like, this thing was messing with us for hours. And my grandma was like, ain't no way, I just left out of here about 10 minutes ago. I just left out of here. So she was like, I just left out of here. There's no way. But my grandma was very, you know, my grandma was Christian. My grandma was very spiritual, very in tune with, you know, the spiritual aspect of things. So she was like, I told y'all to stop being bad. I told y'all the devil's going to come ride y'all, whatever. So they were all like terrified to go to sleep that night. Literally terrified. Nobody went to sleep. So my mom, she went and got into bed with my grandma. And she was like, this is not happening. But every single time they told that story when we were kids, like, and of course I'm missing some details because it wasn't my experience, so I don't really know exactly what happened. But it was like basically trying to sacrifice my mom to this big demon devil thing or whatever. And they were all just like terrified. Like, I'm gonna see if I can get her one day to like just record her, her version of the story. But it was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. And literally every time they talked about that story, I was like, I don't want to hear it. Don't tell me about it. I don't want to hear it. Like, I don't want to hear it. Don't tell me. Don't tell me. But every time I heard it, I would sleep with my mama because no, won't get me. Won't get me. But yeah. If y'all have any questions about the story, I have to ask her because like I said, I wasn't there. She was probably like 10 years old. So I have no idea. I don't know. But I know that when I stayed in St. Augustine, it was very eerie and scary. And you would be outside. My great grandma would always tell me, like, if you hear something call your name, don't answer. And, we also come from an Indian background as well. So she like, if you hear something call your name from those woods, don't you answer. And anytime she called us, she never called us by name while we were outside playing. She never called us by name. She would say, hey, y'all, come in. She never, ever called us out by our name. So we would be out playing, and my grandma had like this little dim light, like this very dim little light. And it used to be so dark and just, it was so eerie. And one night I heard my name in the woods, and I'm like, oh. And I just took off running because I remember her telling me, don't answer, like, do not answer. So I never would answer. So it was just scary though, because it's like, what's going on here? Yeah, I was really scared of like the paranormal and stuff like that, because like I could always see stuff. Like I could see stuff, and it'll always be like out the corner of my eye. So I will always be like, Lord, I don't want this gift. Like, I don't want this. My aunt is, I know the gifts come without repentance, but she has the ability to see dead people and has communicated with dead people. I don't, that's her thing. I don't want to do it. Like one time she told me in this house that I was living in, she was like, yeah, it was this young lady named April. She died in your bathtub, and she's gonna go on now because she doesn't want to scare you and your kids. But I always felt that there was something in that place. Like, it didn't feel like dark, but it felt like something was there. So I was always scared to be there by myself, and my kids would always go with their grandma, and I used to be so terrified to be there by myself. So I'm like, ugh. But then she came and stayed with me for like a week or two, and she was like, yeah, I helped her, come to terms with what happened to her. She was a very young girl. She was like 17, and she was just living a life and yada, yada, yada. I'm like, girl, I don't want to know that. I don't want to hear that. And as you can guess, baby, I went to my mama's house for 2 weeks because I'm not sleeping here, honey. You and April can have this place. No, ma'am. I don't want nothing to do with it. I don't want nothing to do with it. Nothing. But, I had my mom come and pray and all that after that. And, I was able to go back home. But, yeah, that's all I got. And now it just got dark because my computer's turned off. So y'all have a good rest of the day.
I don't mean no harm, but I ain't playing with no spirit, no evil, no evilness, none of that. None of that. That is wild to me that her grandma even let that come out her mouth and didn't cast it away. It just was like threat. And it's just like, we all know that the devil is only going to do what you allow, what he's allowed to do. Demons and bad spirits are only, they don't have no power. It's like they're allowed to do some things, and it's up to you to be like, oh no, you're not allowed to be in my space to do anything. Like, no, this is not allowed. So it's just wild to me when she was like, oh, might come, and it's like, what? You a Christian, you know, bro. And I feel like that was the reason they didn't get touched, because she prayed over those babies. And that's what it's just like, yo, she had to be powerful, because it was just like, she said one thing. It wasn't like no Beetlejuice thing. She had to say it 3 times. She said it once, entertained it, and it happened. It was like, a word? Oh, you allowing me? You not casting me away today? Oh, what? Is this an invitation? Nope. Because that is wild. Ain't no way. I've never heard any of that. We don't play like that. That never comes out of nobody's mouth. Don't play like that. No. If anything, if you try to threaten us, you would be like, I'm gonna make you go outside and get one of those switches. That's a threat. No evilness in it. Like, no, we're not welcoming that. So yeah, that threw me completely off. Nah. When she said graveyard in an S curve, and I was just like, nah, you went missing in a graveyard? And someone, well, a guardian angel, probably an ancestor, guided him out, because what tried to snatch you up, bro? Girl, by that was a lot. Her stories was like, yo, because it's different when you share experience with other people. It's like, okay, I'm not crazy, I'm not hallucinating, this is not an imagination. Like, girl, that was a lot.
I had a follower send me their mimic/doppelganger story, and it is terrifying. According to her, it all kicked off in 2021, and her husband would be gone a lot because he was in the military. He would be like out in the field for 2 to 3 weeks at a time, and during those times, she would just feel a presence in her home. At the time, this really freaked her out because she was pregnant with their first child, their daughter, and so she would light prayer candles every single night before she went to bed. It would just give her comfort. And she would just leave them lit throughout the night. And one night she wakes up and they're all out. And she thinks it's weird, but she has to go to the bathroom. So she kind of just ignores it, gets up. And as she's going to the bathroom, she hears what sounds like a woman singing from her daughter's nursery, which is literally right next to the bathroom, like singing, humming. She said it sounded like a lullaby. The nursery at the time was just being used for storage because, of course, she was pregnant. When she leaves the bathroom, like rushing to her daughter's nursery, the humming is just getting louder and louder and louder, and it doesn't stop until she actually opens up the door. Obviously, there was no one there humming. And about 2 weeks later, her husband is home from the field. Well, her husband had just finished using the bathroom. He's kind of coming out to the living room, and when he sees her, he like jumps out of his skin. He's so scared. And she like laughs. She just thinks like maybe she startled him. And he says to her, "Did you just sit down there?" And she says, "No, why?" Like, she's on the couch with her cookies, she's under a blanket, she's comfy. And that's when her husband tells her that he just saw her walk into their daughter's room. And he was really confused when this happened because it looked just like her, except for some reason she had long black hair. Over the next couple of months, her husband swears this keeps happening. Like, he will see the back of her head, except it's never the back of her head. She just has this long black hair, but she's always wearing the same clothes, and it looks just like her. And she'll be walking into a room as he's kind of like walking past. In October of 2021, she gave birth to their first child, their daughter, and she found out shortly after that she was pregnant with their son. And nothing happens until about a month after her son is born in 2022. And of course, it was one of those times where her husband was gone in the field and she's going to the bathroom. I don't know why the bathroom is attached to so many weird happenings in this place. But as she's in there, she hears a sound coming from her daughter's nursery. Now this is really concerning because when it happened the first time, she was pregnant with her daughter. Now her daughter like lives in that room. And so she immediately gets up from the bathroom. She's going down the hall to investigate. And it sounds like there's something tapping in her daughter's room. My cat has joined us for the story, but she goes into her daughter's room. She's like, "What is this tapping sound?" And that's when she realizes it's the blinds in her daughter's room, like hitting the window over and over and over again, as if somebody is sitting there and like moving them back and forth. She also then notices that her daughter is like upright in her crib. Her hair is a mess. Her daughter is like freaking out, crying. So she immediately scoops her daughter up. She takes her to the bedroom. She has her other child in there. Both of the babies are crying and screaming and everybody's freaked out. And she's on the phone with her in-laws like, what do I do? Her father-in-law comes to the home to come check things out, just make sure everything's okay. And of course, nobody's there. She's kind of like, "I'm sorry I called you out. I swear to you, I know what I heard." And shortly after this, that apartment, that place where they lived, actually got broken into. And so they immediately moved to a townhome, which is where the rest of this story takes place. She probably at this time wasn't thinking much about the paranormal activity and the weird mimic stuff from the last place because they're in a new home and she had bigger fish to fry. Like, their place actually got broken into. But she would sometimes notice that her daughter's closet light would be on when she would enter into the room, and she just would ignore it. She was like, I don't really want to bring this energy into the new place. I'm not going to acknowledge it. Until one day her husband calls out to her and he says, were you just watching me go to the bathroom? And she calls back from the living room. She's like, no, I'm on my phone. I'm watching YouTube in the living room. And he says, I saw you again like last time, but this time you were peeking around the door at me while I was using the bathroom. And of course she's freaked out because her husband just saw that thing again after so much time without any activity. And so she starts cleansing the space pretty routinely, and the activity dies down again. And once again, she's like, okay, we're in the clear. And then there's an incident where they have a bunch of guests over and her daughter drops a glass, and she decides to put her daughter into her room in this new townhouse just so they can clean up the glass and she won't get hurt on any of it. Her husband is like, don't worry, I'll take care of it. You stay with her. And so she stays in the room with her daughter. They're like laying on the floor playing with toys when suddenly her daughter sits up, and she's like a year and a half, 2 years at this point. And she lets out this blood-curdling scream while looking into her closet, the same closet where the lights had been coming on occasionally, and the original person who sent me this email doesn't know why. She walks around this room and she's telling whatever this is, like, no, leave her alone, get out of here. Eventually, her daughter calms down. And at the time of sending me this email, she had said that her husband was leaving for 9 months. And she felt like the thing was going to act up again once he was gone. I didn't find this email until literally like today, and it was sent a year ago. So I'm going to email her back and ask if anything else happened. But in my original email, she asked for advice. So if you guys have any ideas for how to get rid of this thing, if she's still dealing with it, let her know down below. She'll probably read the comments. But yeah, this is such a terrifying mimic story. So what do you think? Stay spooky, friends.
Girl, we already know what to do. Y'all know what to do. Girl, cast that thing out in the name of Jesus. It didn't fault you, whatever that was, because we, like we said, it happens. It seems like this situation happens so much when it comes to, oh, this woman's pregnant, she's about to have a baby, her husband's not at home, she's a stay-at-home mom, and then something wants her baby. Now, ain't nobody got time for this. We know what to do. Anoint that house. Go to the Father about it. Take authority. Cast that thing out. That's your house. Your house, boo. It didn't follow you from the other place to your townhouse, honey. Scare your baby. Now, we don't play about the babies. You already know what to do. Honey, that's too much. Too much. The dad was just like, were you peeking around watching me? That's creepy. Even if it's a real person, that's creepy as heck. Gonna peep around watching me and it ain't, you know, spicy time. Girl, bye. Cause no would have had many saved and sanctified people in there over there anointing and praying. Like, what? Wilding out, got the baby scared. Nope, not at this house. Not at all.
Good morning, friends. It's day one of the rebrand, and I decided that we should start by talking about my favorite glitch in the Matrix story, the Ruby Tuesdays of New Mexico. Now, this tale starts in 2009. There's two brothers named Nate and Greg, and they live in Portland, Oregon. They want to go visit their sister who lives in Port St. Lucie, Florida, and that's a 3-day drive typically. It was wintertime, and they experienced a lot of bad weather on the way there, and they had so many delays that it stretched their drive out to 5 days. And so on the way back, even though it added several hundred miles to their trip, they went straight across the bottom over to Los Angeles and up. They'd never driven this route before, so they used their GPS, and Greg said that he took very meticulous records of their trip throughout the entire time, including the average of how much miles per gallon they were getting. And he said they were getting on average about 35 miles per gallon. But somewhere around Texas, things started to be a little bit strange. he was paying close attention to the dashboard showing you how many miles per gallon he was getting, and it was slowed down to about 25 miles a gallon. He thought that that was strange, but maybe there was just some incline that they weren't sensing, and he thought that over the course of the entire tank that it would even out, but it didn't, and they were forced to make an unexpected stop because they ran out of gas earlier than anticipated. Once they shut off their car and they stopped for gas in Texas, they turned their GPS back on, and it had rerouted them up through New Mexico. It told them to go up 285 instead of the I-10 straight across. And at first they thought that this was kind of strange, but they figured there must be some sort of traffic or reason why it would have rerouted them to go this way, so they decided just to follow the GPS and continue to go. He recalls distinctly passing the city of Encino, New Mexico, and then there was nothing for miles because New Mexico is pretty spread out. It's very desolate and very loosely populated. And then all of a sudden, they came upon this town that was bustling and huge, but not present on the map and not present in the GPS. And he said that that's not uncommon for there to be tiny little places that you can't see, but he said that he estimated that this town looked to have between 10 and 20,000 people there. Like, there were strip malls, there were lots of shops, there were people everywhere, and he thought that it was very strange that this wasn't showing up on his map. But they were really hungry. They were super sick of just eating fast food like they had been for the last few days, and they saw Ruby Tuesdays. They'd never been to one before, but they knew that they had a good salad bar and actually wanted to get some fiber in their bodies, and so they stopped there and they walked in, and what they encountered next completely blew their mind. They're sat by the hostess in a booth, and a waitress comes sauntering up with a huge smile on her face. That she goes, "Nate, Greg, oh my gosh, I'm so happy to see you. How are you? How's Portland?" And they're both looking at each other like, do we know this person? And she's like, how is it going? We miss you guys so much. Really, how are things going in Portland? And they both answered really vaguely, but clearly had strange looks on their face. And they were like, fine, good, yeah, we're doing great, because both of them thought that they must have known this girl from somewhere, because how could she know these details? But they both thought that the other one could remember. And then as soon as she walked away, Greg turns to Nate and goes, how do we know her? And he goes, I was going to ask you the same question. And they were super confused. And then the bartender comes over and he's like, Greg, Nate, oh my gosh, there you are. How are you doing? How did that anatomy and physiology course go up in Portland? Is it good? Like, how is it? How do you like the university? And these two boys did take an A&P course at the University of Oregon. That is a true statement about them, but they don't recognize these people. They've never seen these people in their lives. They're hundreds of miles away from their home, and they've never even been to this part of New Mexico. And so he looks at him and he's like, I don't know why you think that you know who we are. Those are our names, but we don't know you. I think that you guys are misunderstanding our identities. And then he said, all of a sudden, the bartender gets this like super confused look on his face, and he's like, sorry, you just really look like two people who used to work here. I'm sorry, and walks away. The rest of their meal was really awkward and strange. They switched out the waitress, presumably because the original one was so freaked out that she didn't want to go back there. They had a different waitress throughout the rest of their meal, and they said a manager came around the corner, had that same like wash of familiarity come across his face, and he's walking towards the table to go greet them, and then like looks over their head, and he could tell that someone was like, no, don't, it's not them. And then he just like abruptly turned 90 degrees and left. And he said that everybody was staring at them and whispering for them. So they just like gobbled down their food, and they got ready to go, and they were going to pay. And the waitress came back and she said, oh, I'm so sorry. The cash till isn't working. Our credit card machine isn't working today. So your meal's on the house. Thanks for coming. See you later. And they were like, okay, that was very strange. They got in their car and they drove away. They said that they were starting to run low on gas again at this point, and so they were going to try to turn back around in this little town to try to stop and get gas there, but there was too many one-way streets and they couldn't figure out how to get back onto the highway and turn back around, basically. And so they got back on the highway, and the next place they were able to stop was at a truck stop on I-40. And they were totally shaken and weirded out by this in the first place. They're like, how did those people know who we were? Why did all of them feel like they knew us? Like, do we have doppelgangers? Is there some other Nate and Greg hanging out that are also from Portland that stayed in New Mexico? Like, they were so confused. And when they got back home, they pulled up the map because they wanted to investigate to see if their doppelgangers had lived there. And the town they were in doesn't exist. The place in between Encino and the truck stop where they were, everything in between it was totally blank. There's no town there. And they said that was the crazy experience that they have ever been through, and still to this day, they have absolutely no explanation for it whatsoever. What would you do if that was you? Like, what if a whole group of people were so convinced that both that they knew who you were, they knew your name, and they understood, like, biographical data about you, and you'd never seen them in your life and you'd never been there before? Like, what would you think? What would be your first reaction? Would you eat the food? So wild. I love Glitch in the Matrix stories. If you have any, please DM them to me, or you can send them to my email. It's in my bio. If you want to hear about anything else otherworldly to help us escape this dystopian hellhole, I'd love to hear it. I love you guys so much. Thanks for hanging in there with me, and as always, keep your eyes up. Keep your feet on the ground. I'll see you next time.
Bruh, that is crazy. That reminds me of another story, because if you do not know the creator before this creator, Loey Bug, she usually posts about the Matrix, Glitch in the Matrix. I watched all her Glitch in the Matrix videos, and there was one video I think from her, it might have been, because I watched a few, it might have been from her, but I love the Glitch in the Matrix stories, because they really like horror stories, scary, but Glitch in the Matrix stories, bruh, extra scary. Like, that's a whole nother level of scary, because it's like you're losing your freaking mind. It's like, no. So yeah, one of her stories, it was this guy, and he had stopped at a gas station, and he had walked into the gas station, and it seemed like it was a town where it was just like, what, everyone was smiling, everyone was so nice, and it was like their card readers were not working. Card readers weren't working and all this other stuff. So yeah, there's the same thing that happened in that story. Like, oh, the card readers aren't working. Oh, I guess this is your free meal. Low-key happened to him too. And when he went back, I think he had looked up, it was people everywhere. But when he looked down, it was an abandoned gas station. Abandoned. Like, no one's been there in like years. Like, what? So I'm just like, that made me think of that. Like, what? That is crazy. A whole town. Like, and they talk about that a lot in Glitch in the Matrix, where they jump timelines. And like that one timeline where it was this woman in an old timing 50s car, and she had her son in the backseat, and they were driving, and they had popped up, and everybody were looking at them, and it was two men, and they were like, she was on the side of the road, and they had stopped to help her, and they looked in, and she's like, wait a second, you look like you're from the 1950s, and she's looking at them like I don't know what's going on. Like, you look foreign to me, literally. Like, yo, the Glitch in the Matrix stories are crazy. If this was me in that situation, I would be intrigued. You know me, I love investigating, so I would have to know more. Like, tell me all of what you know about me, because I don't know you at all. This is my first time in New Mexico. Like, we would be scared together. Like, honestly, I would be like, yo, no, everyone gather, everyone who knows us, come sit down, and we have to talk about this. And while we're talking, we're going to film this encounter. Actually, we're going to go live, because it seems like footage be vanishing. Like, no, we're going live, so everyone can see this live while it's happening, and they'll save automatically. Like, you know, stuff on the internet stay on the internet. Like, bruh, what, they jumped in another timeline. You hear about that happening too, when people have unalive situations where they are, you know, get in an accident and become unalive and jump into another timeline as if, you know, they never became unalive. So Glitch in the Matrix stories are so exciting to me. Let me know if you want more Glitch in the Matrix stories on this channel. Me reacting to those. I think I can do it. I think, because, you know, scary stories is just like, okay, we have the solution. God is the solution. Glitch stories is just like, wait a second, are we in the Matrix? Are we in a simulation? Like, that's what it's like. It's going beyond all beliefs, everything we know. That's why it's low-key scary. Love it. Y'all know what I said. I've had 2 experiences, I think. You remember when I was driving and time was lost, and then my favorite spoon, now we have 3. And when they come in sets of 2s or, even numbers. So yeah, comment below, like this video, follow all the creators. I'm going to put their names in the description so y'all can find them. Even though you saw them on the screen, I'm also put it in the description. Look in the description, you guys. Thank you. Appreciate you. Subscribe.